Now I'm training for the Olympics. Will I make it? I don't know. As you can tell, not necessarily in the best shape of my life, but we've only got one life after all. And so, how am I doing that? As part of my training, I've identified there are 3 key things that you need to focus on in order to get the most out of your training and get to that high level. The first thing, as people probably already have guessed, is mileage. If you want to get to the top, you need to get the distance in the legs. There's no point doing 100k a week and hoping, fingers crossed, that it'll work out, because you're not going to make it on that sort of distance. Realistically, to get to the best position you want, you got to be doing 200 to 250 kilometers per week minimum. Now, obviously, you're not going to just start doing 250k weeks. It will absolutely destroy your legs. What tends to happen, if you build up your running too much, too fast, you get shin splints, you get plantar fasciitis, you get so many different types of injuries that basically negate the whole training effect. You end up having to take 3, 4, or 5 weeks off training, and then you're back to square one. You can, however, mitigate that risk by using something such as a treadmill that I'm standing on here. Or alternatively, if you don't want to do running, base miles, you can do some sort of cross training. Now here, I've got my bike set up. As an ex-triathlete, I used to spend a lot of time on the bike. Now that's given me a great cardiovascular system. Because I've got that cardiovascular endurance, my heart rate doesn't spike as much as a newer runner would do. So you've got to make sure you've got the cardiovascular endurance as well as the endurance in the legs to make sure you're not overtraining and not getting injured. And so what the endurance gets you, by being able to do more kilometers and having a better cardiovascular and muscular system, gets you more efficient at running. If you want to run fast, 42 kilometers, you want to be as efficient as you can. The more inefficient you are means the more energy you burn for the same effort. But what that then brings into is, because not only do you need the base endurance, you need speed, and that's number 2. Number 2 is you need turn of pace. Now what do I mean by turn of pace? So turn of pace is making sure you work on every single training zone. You're not just getting the base mileage in zone 1 and 2, you're in zones 3, 4 and 5. Now you need all that base. When you look at zone 1 and 2 at the bottom, which be your foundation, they hold up zones 3 in terms of training. And if you were to just do peak training, you'd find you'd never. But you move everything slowly improve pieces and get better. If all you do is run at 10 minutes per k, you'll never get good at 2 minutes per k. You might be efficient, down to 5, but you know, peak paces that will result in peak performance. If there's anything to take away from this video, you've got to work on the speed. The issue is you can't really, so you've got to pick and stick with it. Now let's move inside and we'll go on to the third one. Now, the third thing I want to talk about today is something called durability. This seems to be something that's been very popular over the last couple of years in cycling, but something that runners, for some reason, have never heard of. What do I mean by durability? Let's go back to the whiteboard and I'll show you. Alright, so let me draw out 2 different people here. We've got person A and person B. Now, let's say that person A has a 5k time of 19:30. Person B, however, has a 5k time of 20 minutes. That's the 5k times. Let's say that they're both in a race together. They're both doing a sub-maximal effort on a half marathon. Now they both want to win, but they're racing against each other. The overall time is irrelevant, but what you find is that they're both neck and neck in the final k. Now, if you're just doing a flat out 5k, person A would win because they have a 19:30 5k time versus a 20-minute person B. However, this is where durability comes in. Let's say
than the fast 5k, person B has trained their durability, and now in the final 5k they can do it in 20 minutes and 30 seconds. Is that a PB effort? No, but it's pretty close. While they can't do the maximal 5k time, they're not too far off. Let's look at person A though. Person A, let's say they haven't done durability. And their 5k time is now 21 minutes. So this is a 1 minute 30 slowing from durability, while this is only a 30 second slowing. So while theoretically person A is faster, person B has won that half marathon race, not because they got a faster 5k time, but because in the final 5k they can push faster than person A. And that is what is really important in these races, is how fast can you push at the end of a race.
And how does all this tie into my training? So if you have a look at over the last couple of weeks, I've been doing 8 hours to 8.5 hours of training per week. I've considered adding doubles, because that's the best way to get more volume without actually fatiguing the legs too much by doing 3-hour runs every single day. But realistically, I don't think I'll be able to do doubles for probably the next couple of years. At least until my son is a bit older. Maybe when he's in year 2 or year 3. Something like that would be achievable. But for now, I gotta stick to single sessions. So I'm pretty much capped out in terms of the distance that I can do every week. What I have done is had another look at what I can do. So the way that I structure my stuff at the moment is I do 2 days on, 1 day off. The most simplest and easiest way to do that, to increase volume, is to go to 3 days on, 1 day off. And so that's the plan. So up to 4 days on, 3 days on, 1 day off in November, after I've done my half marathon in Canberra. Then, once I've done the marathon in Canberra in April, stop it again. 4 days on, 1 day off. Continue doing that until I'm eventually at 7 days of training per week. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but let's say I take my current 5-day setup, and I do 8.5 hours a day, add 2 more days, at an hour and a half each, and that brings me to about 12 hours a week of training. And that 12 hours of training is with me only doing a short hour and a half to 2 hour long run on the weekend. If I can bump that up to 3.5 hours like I want, there we go, 15-hour weeks. Perfect, exactly what I want to do. What about intensity? Now, the way that I structure my training is every 2 weeks, I increase the treadmill speed by 0.1 kilometers per hour. That means I go up by 2k per hour every 44 weeks. Let's call that a year. Now, at the way that I'm going, so currently I'm at 9.6. 9.6 equates to about 8 minutes 30 per k. What I found is the next step up, 11.6. That's where I do my tempo work. Now that equates to 7 minutes per k, and then 13.6, which is where I do my threshold work at. That's 6 minutes per k. So if I do nothing else but continue with the pacing that I'm doing, next year I'll be running my easy runs on the treadmill. Treadmill's usually a bit slower than outdoors, but the treadmill, instead of doing 8:30, my easy runs will be 7. And then in a further year, April 2027, let's say, my easy runs will be 6 minutes per k. That is a massive 2.5 minutes per k reduction in pace over 2 years. It's still not quite where I need to be. Where I need my easy pace to be closer to 4. But in 2027, if I can be at 6, it means I've got 3-4 years to keep working on that pace. Instead of dropping 2.5 minutes over 2 years, I can drop 2 minutes over 4. So I can do half the improvements. So I can improve at a slower rate and work on building up the endurance over a longer period of time, mitigating the risks of injuries and illness. When it comes to durability, what am I working on to improve that? If you have a look at all my runs, at the end of each run, whether that's 10 minutes, 1 hour, a 2-hour run, I always do a 1 to 2 minutes sprint. Why? Because that sprint represents going deep the end of the race. Eventually, I'd probably like to get that sprint up to about 3, 4, 5 minutes, but I'm working on it, and we'll get there, because you got to start small. While I've got big goals, you got to chip away, one step, one pace at a time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys train hard and you train smart, and I'll see you guys next week.